students, I hope you all are fine. So students, I welcome you all back to this YouTube channel of mine, English with Ease. I am your teacher, Shyam Panchal, and I am going to give you this lecture on behalf of Takshila Model Senior Secondary School. So students, the present chapter that we are going to discuss is The Little Girl. This chapter has been taken from the book Beehive for class 9. So students, the chapter The Little Girl has been written by Catherine Mansfield. Before we move on to the discussion, the detailed explanation of the chapter, let us now take a look at the title of the chapter. The title of the chapter is The Little Girl. The Little Girl, the chapter is actually the story of a little girl named Kezia. So here we have a little girl named Kezia. So this story, the little girl, actually revolves around this girl named Kezia. Kezia, who is like any other girl, and the important thing about this girl, Kezia, is that she is quite afraid of her father. She is so afraid of her father that she cannot even stand in front of her father. She believes that her father is actually a figure to be feared and avoided. She always tries to avoid her father's presence. So students, the theme or the message that the chapter gives is that it actually happens that when a child is very small, the child may believe that his or her parents' attitude towards the child is very harsh, is very rough, right? But it is later on when the child grows up, he comes to know that the attitude, the harsh attitude of his parents towards him in the childhood, in his childhood days, was actually not in a negative sense, but it was in a positive sense. So it is a story which can be visible in every other home, right? So students, the message that the story gives is that whatever we believe in our childhood, whatever we believed in our childhood about our parents, the opinions that we formed about our parents, especially about our fathers, right? It is seen in the Indian families that fathers are actually considered to be a figure to be feared, right? I mean, the children believe that their father are very strict towards them. But it is later when the children grow up, they come to know that the tough or the rough attitude of their father was actually not to bother them, to disturb them, to tease them. It was only to improve them, right, in various aspects of their lives. So this is what the story, the present story that we are going to discuss, wants to tell us, right? So students, here let us just take a brief outline of the chapter. The present story is about the relationship between a father and his daughter. The daughter, whose name is Kezia, is quite afraid of her father. She is so afraid that whenever she is near her father, she always tries to avoid her father's company, her father's presence. So students, what actually happens in the chapter that whenever her father calls her for any work, she just feels quite afraid, she feels terrified, and she tries not to go near him. But still, it is Kezia's mother or grandmother who compels her, encourages her to go near her father and try to form a great and warm bonding with him. But it is Kezia who believes that her father is not like any other father. She believes that her father is quite different from any other father. She believes that her father is very strict towards her, and he also looks at her in a very terrifying manner. There is one incident in the chapter that once Kezia's grandmother encourages her to give her father a birthday gift, and Kezia quite laboriously makes a pincushion for her father, right? But uh, the stuff that she requires to fill in the pincushion as a stuffing material, she uses this stuffing material uh, as some fine sheets of paper, and these papers uh, were actually a speech of a father for the port authority. So what happens that later on it is discovered that it was Kezia who just tore those fine uh, sheets of paper into many pieces, and then she stuffed those pieces into her pincushion that she wanted to make, right? So after that her father just beat her. Her father beat her with a stick on her palms, and later on Kezia developed more fear uh, in herself for her father, right? So later on, we come to know once Kezia's mother was extremely ill, and she was to be left alone at home. Her mother and her grandmother both went away to the hospital, and it was Kezia who was alone at the home. During the daytime, it was everything was fine. She was okay. There was the cook Alice with Kezia. Alice tried to help Kezia a lot during the daytime, but as soon as the night fell, Kezia started feeling frightened. Actually, it is told in the chapter that Kezia had often nightmares, and when Alice had left, leaving Kezia alone in her bed during night, it was Kezia who had that same nightmare, right? And when she screamed, when she shouted for her grandmother, uh, it was her father who was standing beside her with a candle in his hands. So father took Kezia away to his bedroom. Uh, he lay Kezia beside him, and he stuck. Oh, sorry, Kezia stuck to her father. She snuggled against her father's chest, and she grabbed her father's shirt very tightly in order to avoid any kind of external danger that arose out of the uh, nightmares episode that she had at night. So during this time, Kezia realized that her father, though was actually well built of body, but was very soft from inside. And she also realized that she had a very wrong opinion of her father. She realized that her father could not just spend time with her and could not treat her so fairly because he had been quite busy and he was quite overworked. So after realizing all these things, Kezia's perception uh, of her father changes from fear to understanding. So this is what we are going to learn from this chapter, right? So this chapter just gives us the message that in childhood, the many children have very wrong perspective of their parents, but when they grow up, they come to know that the certain uh, the certain action or the certain attitude of their parents toward them was actually uh, not so wrong. It was meant for something good, right? So this is what the brief outline of the chapter says. Now you have got the idea about this chapter summary. Now let us just start the discussion of the chapter. So students, in this part number 1, we are going to discuss the content written at page number 32 to page number 34. At page number 32 in your textbooks you will find para number 1, and there are overall 12 paragraphs in this chapter. So we are going to cover first 6 paragraphs in this first part, like, and the remaining 6 paragraphs will be covered in the second part that I will uh, I will teach you later on, right? So students, let us move on to the explanation of paragraph number 1. So it is in paragraph number 1 that Kezia uh, believes that her father is a figure to be feared and avoided, right? So Kezia believes that her father uh, is a figure. Figure means is a personality. One should fear him, right? One should not come near him, and that his presence must be avoided by every soul, right? Especially Kezia avoids the presence or the company of her father, right? So, students, it is in paragraph number 1 we come to know the routine of Kezia's father. Actually, before leaving for his work, Kezia's father always goes into Kezia's room, and he gives Kezia a kiss, a warm kiss, right? Kezia, how does Kezia respond to this action of her father? Kezia actually responds by saying goodbye, father, right? So this is what Kezia's father does every morning before he leaves for his work. So what actually happens in the evening? So it is in the later next paragraph of the chapter we come to know that whenever in the evening Kezia's father comes back home, uh, Kezia uh, actually is seen standing by the staircases, right? Uh, One more thing, when Kezia's father leaves home for his work, it is Kezia who just feels very delighted. She is very excited to hear the carriage which is taking her father away. When the sound of the carriage starts becoming fainter and fainter, Kezia takes a sigh of relief. This is in the first paragraph of this chapter. So fainter and fainter here means when some vehicle goes away from you, the sound created by it becomes very low, right? So it is just an indication that Kezia's father has gone far away, right? So when Kezia's father has gone away, Kezia takes a sigh of relief. She's so much afraid of her father, you can just imagine, right? So students, I was just telling you about second paragraph. So in in paragraph number 2, we come to know that it is in the evening Kezia's father comes back. So when Kezia's father comes back, it is Kezia who is seen standing by the staircases, and she uh, hears her father's loud voice in the hall, in the drawing room, right? So Kezia's father speaks in a very loud voice, and what is it that he is asking for? So there are certain things that Kezia's father asks for every day whenever he comes back from his work. So these things are Kezia's father asks for his tea first, then he asks for his newspaper, and he also asks for his slippers, right? So it is Kezia who listens to these things, and she does not dare to come near him, right? She just keeps standing by the staircases. It is Kezia's grandmother who just calls uh, her, or Kezia's mother who calls her and asks her to go near her father and take off his boots. When Kezia's father calls Kezia, when Kezia goes near her father asks her to take off his boots, and Kezia takes uh, his boots off and places them away. So whenever Kezia is near her father, she always stutters. What is a stutter? Stutter is actually a word that means when somebody speaks, to speak with falters. Falters here means to speak uh, with lack of confidence. When you are not confident while speaking something, it simply means you stutter. Or there is a certain fear because of which you are not able to speak eloquently or clearly. So whenever Kezia is near her father, she always stutters. She's unable to speak things clearly, right? She's unable to give the answers of father's questions clearly. So students, Kezia always seems to stutter. But it is not the case with everyone she speaks. Whenever she speaks to other people other than her father, she does not stutter, right? So Kezia has developed a certain fear for her own father, right? So students, what actually happens later on? So this is the daily routine of Kezia's father, right? So there is a certain gap between Kezia and her father, and this gap is due to the fear on Kezia's part, which she has from her father. Kezia believes that her father's attitude towards her is quite harsh. She believes that her father treats her very strictly. So, students, one day it happens that Kezia is at home. She does not go to her school, and it is because that she has cold, right? So it is her grandmother who calls Kezia, and she asks Kezia to prepare something as a gift for her father, because it is her father's birthday next week. So it is a great opportunity for Kezia. It is a grandmother who encourages her to present her father something good, right? And this is also an initiative on Kezia's part, that she can improve things which are going wrong uh, between her and her father, right? So Kezia uh, decides that she will make a pincushion. She will make a pincushion. What is a pincushion, students? A pincushion is a small article which is used to, we can say it is a pin holder, right? We have certain pins which we use to hold the papers by sticking the pins across the paper. So this is a pincushion here, means a pin holder, right? So she decided to make this pin holder for her father, right? So what actually happens? Now Kezia is quite excited about making this gift for her father, and she wants to present this to her father on his birthday. So what happens? There is something wrong that happens, right? So Kezia quite laboriously, right, makes a pincushion uh, out of a beautiful yellow silk, piece of yellow silk. This is a cloth, right? So she does what? She stitches three part of this pincushion, right? And now she needs something to fill her case with something, and this something can be some scrap, right? Some piece of paper, piece of pieces of papers which are useless, are of no use, right? And it can be anything else which is included in scrap, right? So what she does, she just looks for something that she can fill her case with. She first of all looks for her. She first of all goes to her grandmother, but she finds that her grandmother is out in the garden, and then she goes to her mother's bedroom, and there on the table, on the bed table, she finds that there are fine uh, sheets of paper. She just thinks that this is going to be very useful for her, and she does what? She just tears these fine sheets of paper into many pieces, and she stuffs her case with these pieces of paper, right? And she stitches the fourth side, and her pincushion is ready. What happens? It is at night that there is a great hue and cry in the house. So it is a phrase, hue and cry. What does it mean? Hue and cry. Hue and cries means chaos. Chaos. Chaos means lot of noise, commotion, we can say, right? Lot of noise. So there is lot of noise, there is lot of uproar in the house. Father is shouting at the servants, sometimes at Kezia's mother, and asking for his speech. His speech for the port authority. So Kezia's father had prepared a speech for the port authority, and he just wanted a speech, and this speech was missing. So it is Kezia's mother who goes to Kezia, and she asks Kezia. She asks her if she has seen those fine sheets of paper which uh, were actually the speech for his father, right? For her father. So Kezia here admits that she tore those pieces of paper into many bits, and she stuffed her case, right, with those papers. So Kezia's mother here gets very angry, she gets infuriated, and she grabs Kezia's hand and takes her down to her father, right? Her father, who is standing in the hall, in the drawing room, right? And he's just moving to and fro. To and fro, this To and fro is another phrase that means back and forth. Means sometimes he was going forward and sometimes he was going backward with his hand at his back. So Kezia's father is quite angry. He is very furious. He is not able to find his speech for the port authority. He asks all the servants to uh, search the house, right? He questions them one by one, but nothing happens. Nothing comes out of comes uh, about the papers. So finally, Kezia's mother takes Kezia downstairs, and when Kezia is in front of her father asks Kezia about the papers, and she stands uh, looking, staring down, right? She's not daring to look at her father. So with this part number one of this chapter ends, right? So we can just read in the chapter that Kezia is quite afraid of her father, and now she is certain that her father will definitely punish her, and she's ready for this punishment. So, students, let us wait for the time when we will discuss the second part of this chapter. Meanwhile, I suggest all of you to read the text carefully, right? And do learn the word meanings which come in front of you when you just read the text, right? If you have any query, if you have any question, you can just write to me in the comment box, right? So, students, till then, be happy, keep smiling. Thank you very much.